All right, everybody, this is In Liberty and Health, episode number 64. I think I got that right. Sometimes a little shaky on the numbers. I say that at the beginning of like every single show. I got Audrey with me today from the amazing Don't Tread on Philly. I've really been digging this effort lately, but first, let's kind of dig into the history and, kind of where you are and, how you got to where you are now. What brought you to libertarianism and the Libertarian Party, first off?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. It's definitely a pleasure. And yeah, the DTOP is pretty fun right now. I'm enjoying it. We're getting some cool things going. But yeah, I guess I grew up pretty religious, very much, a fundamental Christian conservative. I think held on to that mostly through college. I think I regrettably voted for John McCain in 2008 when I was a sophomore in college.
Oof.
I didn't know any better. I was
Yeah.
indoctrinated in learning my ways. But I spent some time overseas after college. I was did some mission work in Southeast Asia, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia specifically, and just being in different cultures. I think it shook me a little bit. I don't think I held on to everything in that conservative world all the time leading up to that, but just seeing these different cultures, these different people, and everybody kind of, despite their differences. I mean, Malaysia is a very, very racist society, but they get along better than we do in the United States, and we tried for a long time to kind of pretend not to be racist. So, yeah, it shook me. I would say it shook me of that, sort of red-blooded conservative patriotism. And this was probably back in like 2012. And from then on, I had no idea where I fit in. I still couldn't really stand the left, couldn't ever see myself vote Democrat. I think in 2016, I ended up voting Gary Johnson as a throwaway vote. Didn't really know much about him or the Libertarian Party. The only libertarians I knew were pretty lame. So eventually, got moved up here to Philly in 2016. Love Philadelphia. I think it's a, great city. But all this COVID stuff, from the lockdowns, the vaccine mandates, everything going on just made me think I've got to find something. There's got to be somebody here in Philly or somebody somewhere that is sane. So ended up finding on a rabbit hole like Dave Smith. I think it started Tim Pool, Michael Malice, Dave Smith, and then Maj. And yeah, and eventually I decided to get involved here in PA after some of the convention stuff went down last year.
Mm-hmm. So were you at the 2021 convention?
No, I was not. I heard about it through Dave Smith and everything that was going on there. Yep.
Yeah, you were probably blessed to not be a part of that. That was my first convention, and I don't want to put the party down, but for being such a small pond of fish, it amazed me how tight people hold on to that and don't just say, wow, we have so many people coming here that are interested in the Libertarian Party. Why shouldn't we welcome these people with open arms? And, I can understand their skepticism, but at the same time, let's breach that. Let's have that both ways. Like, hey, we're skeptical of these new people coming in, but let's be wary and let's be honest and let's talk to these people and see, where do we have common ground? Because I guarantee you, if people just had the conversations, which I've done on this podcast with people who I thought might have been enemies or adversaries at first, you just talk to these people and it's like, we agree on just about everything, but maybe some of the rhetoric, maybe some of the messaging, and maybe how far we go in some of these principles, we may get off at different exits, and maybe some people see different paths to liberty. Has that been kind of your experience as well?
Yeah, I think so. I just started as the board rep here in Philly about a month ago, and I got to attend my first board meeting, and it was like, this is insane. The first one I got on, it was a Saturday night. My dad was driving into town for the Tool concert back in February, and I get on it. What does it start at 5:00 and then ended it up until 1:30, and it was just completely and utterly crazy. It's like everybody just going after each other. It was just a free for all for so long, and yeah, there's just something. I don't know. There's just something weird about it, and I think The Mises Caucus, I think, drew me in mostly through Dave, through the messaging. I reached out to them probably last August and got to know some people here in Philly, and it's like these are cool people. These aren't the stuffy libertarians that I remember from college, and
Yeah.
these are like normal city people. They wanna get down, hang out, have a good time, and they believe in liberty. They believe in freedom, and it's like I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of these people. But yeah, that's kind of been my experience there. I think one of the fundamental differences I notice, and it's starting to grate on me a little bit, is I keep hearing the word duopoly. I just keep hearing, we got to fight the duopoly. We got to fight the duopoly. And what, to me, when I'm coming in as an outsider, and I'm looking at that, I'm saying, okay, so you're going to fight the duopoly. Do you want a piece of their pie? You've got a little 2% sliver of their pie. What do you want? 5, 10, 20, 30? But regardless, the duopoly, that pie, it's still moldy, it's still rotten, it's still disgusting. Like, why do you want a piece of that pie?
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, coming in as an outsider and having some influence now from people like Dave Smith and Michael Malice and some of that philosophy, really, it's not a duopoly. It's a monopoly. The Republicans and the Democrats are a uniparty. I mean, we just heard Joe Biden give a State of the Union where he basically half of his speech was Trump's campaign message. Lock
Right.
down the borders and whatever he was talking about. It's a monopoly, and the monopoly is the state. And
Right.
so really our enemy is not the Democrats or Republicans. It's the state, and the state is controlled by the Democrats and Republicans. And the way I see it is, culture, they say culture is downstream from politics. And if we're going to get on that stream politics is downstream from culture. If we're going to get on that stream from culture to politics, and we go into this politics, if we try to fight on, the state's playground, well, it's a fertile playground. They got this stream running right into it, that all the culture is just feeding right into the state. We're not going to win. We're not going to win trying to scrounge for votes or scrounge for influence. Not that I'm saying we shouldn't do that. That's definitely part of it. But in order to beat that state and beat that duopoly and actually get a foothold, you have to build a dam in that stream and send it another direction. Like,
Mhm.
get your own pie, get your own city, build it, and hopefully people will come join you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that a lot of people kind of throw shit at that politics is downstream from culture, but there's definitely something relevant to it because um the politicians obviously want to get votes, which requires having influence over the people and being in their favor. So you need to be, culturally aware. And I'm starting to see this with Donald Trump because he's the main guy in the Republican
Mm-hmm.
Party now, right? Or at least the most favored amongst Republicans. It seems like he's not quite on top of the culture anymore because he's pumping the biggest issue of our time, the vaccine. Now, well, I shouldn't say the vaccine
Yeah.
mandates, right? He'll pay lip service to being against the mandates, but there's something to somebody sitting here finger wagging at you, telling you don't, put down the vaccine or be skeptical because it's the greatest thing in the world. I'm against
Yeah.
the mandates, but this is the greatest thing in the world, so you should go get it. But I'm against the mandates. There's something to that, and I think even some of his base is kind of waking up to this. And some people will poo-poo me because I'm not constantly shitting on Democrats, but that's like shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, we all know they're bad. I'm not going to say anything to change your mind. I'm not saying anything that you don't already know when I tell you that the Democrats are absolutely terrible.
Mm-hmm.
There's no argument there. Clearly, they're pushing for all this stuff just as much. But if we're supposed to buy onto this, GOP route or the paleo route, which I think there's validity to do that maybe in certain areas, then we need a new guy. It cannot be Donald Trump at this point, just because when you're getting booed at your rally for championing the vaccines while people are getting fired for their, from their jobs for not taking it, then dude, you're way out left field. So, and this is part of where the Libertarian Party failed as well, is that they didn't come out with a strong, hold and a strong grip and fight against this. You need to come out right as soon as this comes out, like, hey, no, we don't consent to this. This needs to be a personal medical choice, and there should be no showing your papers at the freaking door to get into Giant Eagle so you can get you can go get your overpriced groceries. Sorry. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's absolute ridiculousness. And there's not really that many people standing up and saying, no, this is ridiculous. I see people saying, oh, well, we've had vaccine mandates for, since George Washington. But they didn't have to go to the store and prove that they were vaccinated just so they get basic human needs.
Right. Yeah, and I think what's gone on with the culture, and I don't know if it's social media, I don't know if it's always been this way, but what's gone on with the culture is it's suddenly the cool thing is to comply. The cool thing is to virtue signal online. I don't know if it starts with that or something else, but it's gotten all the way to the point where here in Philly, they just lifted the mask mandates in the city this past week, but they're still masking kids in schools for another week, which is just that was always one of the most ridiculous things. And Philly in particular decided to implement an N95 mandate on these kids. And that's like, what in the world? Like, these kids can't do that. Like, how are you going to get an N95 properly fitted on a kid? How are you going to keep it on them? I've heard some stories from some moms about, the masks cutting the kids' faces, like just not cool stuff. But what I'm hearing is going on is people want to push back, like parents want to push back and say, no, you're not doing this. In fact, I was at a school district meeting a couple weeks back, and this mom got up there and said, if you don't, and this wasn't in the city, but she said, if you don't lift the mask mandate tonight, I'm sending my kid to school tomorrow without a mask, and you're going to do the right thing. Challenged them flat out. Sent the kid sat, I guess the kid sat in a principal's office for an hour. They sent him back to class without a mask on. And then other moms started doing it. Like that's always that was always the answer,
Yeah.
trying to sue your way or protest your way and try to reason with these people who don't want to be reasoned with is never going to work. But the issue here, I know in Philly and even in schools in general, there's a social hierarchy. There's pressure, and they basically, I don't know if I want to use the word indoctrinated, but it kind of fits. They've like indoctrinated these kids that wearing masks makes you the good student, wearing the mask makes you the good kid. And so these kids are scared to do it. We have moms in Philly that want to send their kids to school unmasked, but they don't because their kid's too afraid of getting bullied. And that's just terrible. That's horrible.
Well, it speaks to kind of how totalitarian regimes kind of come to be. If anybody has ever read some of the history of some of this stuff, any totalitarian regimes over the course of history, one book that I talk about a lot is Ordinary Men. Jordan Peterson had talked about that book a lot, so I decided I'd finally get and read it. And it's about how a group of literally ordinary men in a police battalion back in Nazi Germany had came to become literal Nazis that were taking naked pregnant women into fields and shooting them in the back of the head. And it wasn't by a top-down hierarchy, right? Mm-hmm. These people were told consistently, you can leave. You don't have to do this. You can go at any time. You're free. There's no punishment. You can do as you please. And what happened? It was, one person would step away and then maybe another person, but then the rest of the guys would say, hey, I'm not going to leave my friends to do the dirty work. And they would just push them a little bit past where they were comfortable, right? So to apply this to kind of masks, right? Kids come in wearing their cloth masks, right? And they're told that, hey, you need a better mask. So you start wearing the surgical mask, let's say. And then it just gets pushed a little bit further. And then the kids start wearing it underneath their nose. And then all the kids are taught that you need to be, the grown-up in the room. Yep. And make them wear their mask right. So it's never a top-down thing. It's always from the bottom up, because you need all the people below you to enforce this. And it's the same thing in camps in communist countries, right? The different prisoners told on each other. The prisoners ran the camp. So that's how these things stay in order. But when you start hearing about kids and moms going into the schools and saying, look, we're not doing this anymore, then it takes one, and then it takes a second guy. And then the third. And then when you have enough people to finally stand up and just say, we're not tolerating this anymore, then finally it can end. But, you need those first few dominoes.
Yeah. And I think we're starting to see some cracks. I mean, the city apparently was trying to keep their mandates going for a lot longer than they did, but there's definitely been some political pressure. You have midterms coming up and that sort of thing. So you've definitely seen some cracks, and part of me wonders if, the powers that be just realize they overplayed their hand a little bit here. They're pushing it a little bit too hard. There are people who are waking up who otherwise would not have. I mean, I was with coworkers the other day that, just pretty normal people, and we were at a restaurant that didn't make you wear a mask to get up and use the bathroom, and they were just so thrilled. They're like, "Oh my gosh, this is normal. Like the servers aren't wearing masks. This is amazing." It just, like, something is starting to crack a little bit, and it's good to see. The challenge now is, now that they're getting rid of the mandates, well, how do you keep that up? How do you how do you keep showing people that, hey, this narrative's still going on? It's not COVID right now. It's Ukraine. It'll be something else next week. It'll be
Right.
something else in 6 months. Um, but I think that's where culture comes into play. Is you have to build a culture of freedom and liberty from the ground up, and that's kind of been my goal with my organization, Don't Tread on Philly. Is we want to turn, Philadelphia back into the city that is a beacon for freedom. It was the birthplace of liberty. It was the birthplace of independence. The Declaration of Independence was written and signed here. um, we want to see Philly be that city again, in the state of Pennsylvania, in the USA, and in the world. Really, we want it to be a beacon of freedom.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I totally think that should happen. And it totally is from the bottom up. It's I remember first going into restaurants last year. No, holy shit, 2 years ago now. When they first lifted mask mandates around here, because I'm a little bit
Hmm.
north of Pittsburgh,
Yep.
and just thinking, wow, this is like normal. So I play in a band called A Common Crown as well, and they first announced lockdowns, and then after about a month or so, they opened everything back up. And then, the spring and summertime came, and they locked everything back down. And I remember going to a venue after like the harsher lockdowns in the summer. Um, we went and played at this club that was open illegally, essentially. And I
Hmm.
remember walking in with a mask on, and I get in, and there's nobody with a mask. And it's so weird because you're so, and I
Yeah.
hate saying this, but I was used to wearing it. So I'm
Yeah.
looking around, I'm like, holy shit, I can take this fucking thing off. But like, it's just, I know people say it all the time, but look, think back to 2019 and then think about walking into everywhere you go wearing a mask. And then now, 2 years later, you're told that this literally essentially did nothing. Everything they did
Yep.
was for absolute nothing. And they'll never come out and say that. But this is something that everybody needs to know. It needs to be front and center, is that
Yeah.
everything they did, the life that they took from your children, the dollars and purchasing power that they stole from your grandchildren, all of this was done for nothing. It did not have to be this way.
Yep.
And the people who did this, and the people who were complicit in this, the people who didn't even directly do it, anybody who allowed this at a government level needs to be brought to justice. And whatever that justice looks like, I'm not going to say,
Yeah.
but these people need to be voted out. And honestly, if they were ridiculed publicly for the rest of their lives, I would feel no remorse. You deserve it. You cost children years and years of
Yeah.
suffering. You deserve, to be repaid.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, it didn't have to be this way. And that's kind of the sad thing. And in some ways, all we had to do was stand up and say no, but we were too afraid. Um, People here can't stand our mayor, Jim Kenney. And yeah, the guy shouldn't be in office. I mean, what he and the health department have done here to the people of Philadelphia has been disgusting. I was driving through North Philadelphia today. I don't get through there. I don't go through there very often. It's, some of the areas there are a really rough part of town. And, everything was just so run down. It was so depressed. There's so much poverty. I'm like, we spent all the last 2 years bitching and complaining about masks, people bickering and fighting over whether or not they're vaccinated and whether or not there's going to be super spreader events. And yet I'm driving through these neighborhoods, and people are walking out of houses that are falling apart. They're, the fentanyl's a huge issue here in Philly. We just had the most murders we've ever had in a year. Like, like there's just, we're trying to keep ourselves safe from a disease that had, a 99 point something percent survival rate, while everything else is just kind of going to hell in this city. And yeah, uh, Jim Kenney deserves a lot of blame. I tend to be somebody who wants to offer grace. It's easy for the dark sides of my humanity to be like, yeah, let's send this guy to Gitmo. Let's see what happens to him there. Um, I think I'd settle with him just never being allowed anywhere near a position of authority again, and maybe dumping some cheese whiz on him, and feathering him that way instead of the traditional tar and feather. But other than
Yeah.
that, yeah, I don't want to see the guy in office, and I don't want to see the systems and the structures that keep, whether it's Jim Kenney or Tom Wolfe or Biden or Trump or Obama or Bush or any of them. I don't want to see those things last. Like, I want to see something new. Um, but yeah, how do you do that other than, as we keep mentioning, going after culture and changing minds and helping people see that this is a joke. They're getting played.
Right. And that was kind of the goal with this podcast. And I see lots of other libertarians kind of doing the same thing. Um, we have to, show that we're not just, losers screeching on Twitter or screeching on Facebook about the state. I do that plenty to my fiance
Yep.
downstairs. And that was part of the reason why I started this. But we have to be leaders of our community. We have to be people who are going to lead people to these, to what we're proposing needs to be done. We have to stand up and tell people that, like, look, you were screwed by these people, and we're here to give you a solution. We're leaders in our community, and we're going to do our best to forge a path forward that looks like, the best, most prosperous libertarian society. And how can we do that if we're just tweeting away, if we're just arguing on
Yep.
Twitter, if we're just screeching on Facebook? We need to get out there and we need to do things. We need to talk to people. We need to become, better fathers, better brothers, better sisters, better mothers, better, better workers, better people. There's no area where we shouldn't improve in our own personal lives so we can, do better everywhere else.
Yeah.
So that kind of tags well onto Don't Tread on Philly. So what was kind of the genesis of this, and how did it start? And obviously we know what it's about, but just kind of what are all the details and how's it been going?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool story. So I was asked to be a county level organizer for the Mises Caucus back in, I think, November. And I was like, okay, let me just see what I can do and get involved. I, was toying with the ideas of, cultural liberty and growing things that way. Actually, last summer I built, and I'm sitting in a speakeasy in my basement. I don't sell anything down here, so it's not technically illegal. But I built a bar down here, and it was a great project. And so when I got involved with the Mises Caucus, I started inviting people over. Just say, hey, you guys should come hang out. And I think me just going out and inviting people over and saying, hey, there might come a point where we can't get into bars anymore. Come hang out down here. I think just being outspoken like that, and trying to be a little bit outgoing just got me that position. And so I don't know what was going on. They were trying to ramp up the program or something, and I ended up talking to some people in the caucus, and I said, what if I just started a Philly Mises Caucus Twitter account? You can get on Twitter with a Mises Caucus account, and you can you can say a lot more than you can from a standard LP account.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, let me do that. Let me start doing some respectful shit posting on Twitter. And I said, I need to come up with something for Philly. I want this to be unique. I don't want this to just be a Mises Caucus Philly. Like, it's something that makes the Mises Caucus chapter of Philly unique. And I had recently just been on this obsession with the Gadsden flag, and I said, what if I just said don't tread on Philly? Like, what if I just made this tagline that said don't tread on Philly? So I did that, started up the Twitter account, and then a week later the mandates came down. And I mean, I was livid. I was pissed. I was kind of pissed off from day one with the pandemic. I was dealing with mental health issues, and I was actually I was starting to recover from mental health issues. And they were telling me I had to be in my house by myself. So anything since then has been like, come on, no, you can't. This is stupid. You can't do this. So I remember getting on to one of the Mises Caucus signal chats and blasting out about how pissed off I was. And Mark Bazzacco got on there and he said, "Hey, this is great. I'm glad you're pissed off. Let's talk." And so we scheduled a meeting for I think 2 days later. And it was just me, Bazzacco, and Joy Weir, and we just started talking and said, "What are we going to do?" And we said, "Well, let's protest. Let's protest at the New Year's Day parade. What should we call it?" We said, "Well, I've got this tagline, 'Don't tread on Philly.'" And we said, "Okay, let's go see if the URL is available." Sure enough, it's available. Buy it. And yeah, from there we just started. We tried to plan a protest. I mean, I think it went pretty well. We the parade here on New Year's Day is very much a working class, like South Philly type parade. It's called the Mummers Parade. They get all dressed up in crazy costumes and strut all drunk as hell down Broad Street in Center City. And a lot of them, we had these signs made up saying, "Don't tread on Philly," or "Mandates are racist," or "COVID 1984." And you had all these South Philly working class dudes just running up to us, like ripping the signs out of our hands and wanting them to walk down the street with them because they were pissed off about things too. And so that's kind of how it all started. It just started as this wanting to protest, wanting to be defiant, just kind of being pissed off. But then as time went on, we started meeting people. We had a meeting in a pub one night. It was myself, Michael Heiss, Mark Bazzacco, Maj Touré was there, and then a bunch of people from the city. And I remember sitting there thinking in the pub, this is where the American Revolution happened. It was here in these pubs where they planned these things. They planned this out. And I remember thinking that, and the exact same moment Maj was tweeting it. And I looked down at my phone, I see Maj had tweeted that exact same thing. I'm like, damn, that's cool. He's getting that feeling too. Like we must be doing something. But basically what I was finding is that defiant protest, that defiant anger that I had was moving from defiance and anger to like hope and just action. I started finding there were so many people in this city that weren't happy. We were talking to people in working class bars. We were doing outreach on the streets. People would be like, "Yeah, I'm double vaxxed, I'm triple vaxxed, and you can't be doing this. Like, you can't be doing this." Or, "I know somebody who can't get the vax and can't get an exemption. Um, like, this is terrible." And, I remember sitting at a bar one day with like, 20 construction workers or something, and they were just all like, "Yeah, we're not vaxxed. I don't know where they're getting this from. Like, half the city is vaccinated because nobody I know is vaccinated, and I'm sure as hell not showing my papers." So it just changed to this, like, it went from this Mises Caucus protest to suddenly, hey, we've got a chance here to tap into this chip on the shoulder that Philly has. And it's gone full circle from protesting mandates, fighting mandates, to now it's back to this. I want to make freedom cool again. I want to make it cooler to be free than to live on your knees. And that's what Don't Try to Philly's become now. Whereas it's this nonpartisan, not officially affiliated with the Mises Caucus, although I'm a member of myself, and there's several other Mises Caucus members that are part of it. But yeah, we're trying to, one of the biggest things with the Mises Caucus is issue coalitions. And that's essentially what we're trying to do, being like a social issue coalition hub, or just just a node in a network to get people connected here in Philly.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is an awesome story. And I can't imagine the feeling of literally being where the Declaration of Independence was signed and kind of putting together something in protest to a government that has become tyrannical. I mean, it's surreal how how far we've come in 200, about 250 years. 200, yeah, 250 years. It's absolutely insane to think that we would have to fight for these freedoms again. And now they're ready to send people overseas for wars while they're still debating, this kind of vaccine mandate. Do you kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to the mandates? I mean, we're seeing some of them rolled back, but it's so hard to say if they're going to really let their finger off the trigger on this. What's your thoughts on it?
I think I would say they're reloading. I think they're probably letting their finger off the trigger, but they're reloading maybe for something else. I mean, who knows if it's in the fall? If some cases start coming back in the fall, or we get a particularly bad flu season, and it's like, oh, everybody's got to get their flu shot, or everybody's got to get wear a mask for the flu. I like, as I said earlier, I think they overplayed their hand a little bit, and I think they know it, and they've got to, before they completely lose the culture and completely lose the trust of people, they've got to pull back for a little bit. And that seems to be what's going on. Like there's just nothing to justify these mandates right now. Most places are waking up to that. You could see it in Center City, Philadelphia, for the month the mandates were going on. There's nobody there. There's just nobody in these restaurants. I'm walking down at like 6 o'clock, prime time for dinner, and you see 10 servers standing around serving 2 people. It's just terrible. But then you go to the bars that weren't, complying, and they're packed. And then, now I go back into Center City again with the mandates gone, and everything's packed again. Like, I really do think they know they overplayed their hand, and something else will come down. It's always something, whether it was 9/11 and the Patriot Act, now COVID, you hear about governments continuing to kind of pass the bones and the structures of future vaccine passports. Yeah, it's something's coming. Whether it's another strain of COVID, another virus, global warming and in your carbon footprint, just that whole social credit score system that I really learned about mostly from Dave Smith.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's kind of what it seems to be, is that they do want this social credit score. And I've done a lot of research into this kind of stuff personally. I actually record a whole podcast that I haven't released yet on green energy inefficiency. And it's almost amazing to me, so I'm a mechanic as well. But I dug into the topics of this green energy, right? So when we talk about wind, solar, those kind of green energies, or nickel metal hydride batteries, which are the primary batteries in hybrid vehicles, all of these technologies, right? The wind and solar is at very, very best. If you manage to have these enormous cells that can store energies for up to 12 hours, they're about 97% effective at very, very best. Our energy right now, which mostly comes from like coal and fossil fuels, is like 99.97% effective. Yep. So, and you would have to pull out all the stops to make it 97% effective. At worst, I think they said it's around like 83% effective. So it's incredibly ineffective, and you would have to do so much labor. And these solar panels actually can only absorb about 20% of about 20 to 30% of all the energy they take in, they can actually use. Now, when you also hear about cow farts and cow burps, if you have grass-fed, grass-finished meat, which all meat should be, that's actually better for the environment. It's actually carbon negative. So, and they're pushing for a lot of vegan stuff. And not that I have a problem with the vegan lifestyle. The episode I'm going to put out with Caucus, we went back and forth about veganism, and me and him are in agreement on basically, whatever gets you to your healthiest, whatever. And then nickel metal hydride batteries to kind of tie this all off. Those are actually severely worse for the environment than all the other type of batteries that have been put out. Cadmium, lead, lithium ion, which are a big one. Those are mostly the ones that are like in phones and rechargeable batteries. Those ones are way, 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 way better for the environment versus the nickel metal hydride, which are in, your Prius, your Volts, all this stuff. So what it seems like they're kind of building towards, if you didn't get your latest vaccine, then you can't go to the store and get your meat. Maybe you had too much red meat this month, so you have to deal with the vegan meat. You have to go get bread instead. They want to track down your every transaction, and they want to watch what you do, watch what you watch, and watch what you say. And if you don't say the right things, if you don't eat the right things, if you don't drive the right kind of vehicle, then now we can start pulling the strings of what you can and can't do. You have basically an apartheid system where there's certain people who aren't as equal as others for making different decisions. And to think that 250 years ago, we would have overthrew the government for a 2% tea tax, to now we may arbitrarily decide on some arbitrary rules whether or not you get to consume certain food or drive a certain vehicle due to a arbitrary score. It's astounding. Our founding fathers would have there would be torches to say the least.
No, 100%. And it's, I mean, I don't know if everything will actually get there. I mean, I think there's definitely hope. I think there's a lot of people waking up, and I'm definitely, white pilled, so to speak, on all of this. I don't think we have to lose, and I don't think it has to go. I mean, I think, tyranny always falls. Nobody expected the Soviet Union to fall, but then they had Chernobyl, and then the church started getting back in there, and people started waking up, and it fell 30 years ago this past Christmas. The thing with the Soviet Union is they had control of the media. They had it on lockdown. Nobody knew what was going on there except for the higher upper echelons. And you can say, well, we have censorship here. Yeah, we do. YouTube will take stuff down, and Facebook will take stuff down, and that sort of thing. But the media here is playing whack-a-mole. There's something popping up, and they got to go beat it down. And then there's something else, and they got to go do that. And they don't have a lid on the information. They don't have a lid on the truth. It's like with COVID and the data modeling. I'm a data analyst by trade. I've always been sort of climate skeptical. I'm a huge fan of being a good steward of this earth. I'm a huge fan of doing things that are sustainable and not polluting it, and taking care of the resources that you have. But the statistical models that they're using to say, hey, the Earth's going to go to hell in 5 years. Like, no, that's not how it works. And that's not how modeling works. And the numbers that you're putting in, and the parameters and all this stuff. I mean, Jordan Peterson just explained it brilliantly on Rogan a few weeks back. And it's like, yeah, Peterson's spot on. He tore this down. And the thing is, they did the same exact thing with COVID from the get-go. It was, oh, we're going to have 1 million dead in 3 months, or, something ridiculous. And I'm sitting there as my normal, skeptical, analytical self. I'm like, these numbers don't add up. It can't be both as contagious and as deadly as they're saying it is. If it was, there'd be people dropping in the streets, but it's just not. And so, yeah, they're doing the same thing with COVID that you see happening with the climate. And even over the last 2 years, the only more common, I'd say, advertisement that I've seen than say, go get your shot, is, oh, if we don't change the climate, everybody's going to die. There's the only ads that I basically see watching YouTube videos is climate, COVID shot.
Wow.
So yeah, it's the same thing.
They're all sponsored by all the COVID ones are always sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech. that's always funny. I always hear the radio ads. I heard one today. I want to say it was on Spotify or Pandora, because we listen to that at my work, and they were playing the song, and then the song finishes up, and then it's an ad, and they say, well, we all have our specific types of music. You may like rock, you like metal, you may like R&B, but you all should get your COVID shot. Like, literally right at the end of this, I'm like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything?
Nothing.
And never did we sit here and preach to people about how they should have the flu shot. And I really don't care if people get vaccinated. I've looked into the data enough to understand that, in my opinion, in my analyzing of the data, that for people under the age of 30 who aren't obese, who are healthy, it's probably more detrimental to your health than getting COVID. Yeah. I cited the study in one of the podcasts I did, but I got to sometimes tiptoe around it because I know some people get pulled for this. But in my non-doctor's opinion, if you're a younger person, you're probably better off just get over it. My
Yeah.
fiance and I are both very healthy, and we both had it. This was last March, almost a year ago now. There's like nothing. We got
Yep.
over it quick.
Yep.
Now, I've known people personally who had a hell of a time with it. My mom got over it, and she's 52. She's not in perfect health, and she had cancer 3 times. It was hell on her, but she
Yeah.
got over it, thank God. But it's not to say that we shouldn't, care about it or shouldn't look at treatments,
Right.
but to just constantly push this one size fits all thing. No, it doesn't work that way. Why don't we have
Yeah.
minds on every single avenue saying, hey, why don't we try this? Why don't we try this? Why don't we try this? Why don't we try a vaccine? We can have people who try the vaccine. We can have people who try different treatments, different therapies, and whatever works, we'll go with that. But instead,
Yep.
we just get just one thing. There's nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was the whole thing from the get-go. And it's easy to forget the lockdowns and how we went through the same thing. Every step of this has been, there's only one way out. At first, it's like, we're going to flatten it by staying home. Well, staying home didn't work. So, we got to wear masks. Well, wearing masks didn't work. So now we got to get the vaccine. Now the vaccine's didn't stop Omicron. It's I had it twice. I had the original strain early on, and it wasn't a pleasant couple of days, that's for sure. It felt like I had some 10-pound weights on my chest. I was, thankfully I was, working to get healthier, and I was in the gym pretty constantly those days.
Mhm.
And I don't think, I was like, I didn't know it was COVID at the time. And so I got right back in the gym and was working out and was over it. And then I had it again, in January, and it was just like a week of just a shitty cold. And that was all it was. But the issue was, all along, it's just been, there's one answer. There's one answer. And like you said, no, there's not. It depends on who you are. I'm not the type of person that typically gets very sick. I don't get sick all that often. I might get a small cold once in a while. I don't remember, it's probably been 15 years since the last time I had the flu. I'm not in, base after COVID and some personal life things. I haven't been in the best of health, at least in terms of taking care of myself. But I've never been like, I've just never had issues, and I don't have huge family issues. Like, I mean, a lot of my family's lived quite a while. And even lived with major health issues quite a while. So I wasn't like that concerned about it, but it did kind of wake me up. It said, hey, the biggest thing here is cardiovascular health. So, I mean, I used to take care of myself a lot better when I was younger, had a better metabolism. I was always, working out, really cared about it. Then, went through some personal shit with a divorce and some other things, and really fell off the wagon there. And then COVID was like, COVID was kind of hell where that was concerned. But I was like, I got to do something, because even if I'm not that worried about this, like, yeah, it's time to, I'm 33. It's time to, start taking some things seriously. So like you were talking about, started looking into, naturally raised meat and that sort of thing. And, trying to just break these nasty COVID habits. And that's the collateral they don't talk about. They
Mhm.
don't talk about the addictions to, well, they'll talk about the addictions to drugs, but like, what about the addictions to food? I mean, so many of us, and even myself, I tend to be a comfort eater. Like, how many of us have gotten addicted to, whether it be sugar or carbs or anything, just over these past 2 years, just from all the stress, just from all the cortisol shots continually hitting your brain, just from being stressed out. And you're feeding that and trying to get out of it by, running to these, the restaurants or whatever you can get delivered from Amazon, or just all of our, our shitty food practices here in the US. And it's gonna, we talk about having an obesity epidemic. Well, it's going to be 10 times worse in a couple of years because of all of this. And nobody ever talks about that. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Right.
I
Well,
mean,
there's a lot of ugly collateral damage over these last 2 years that literally nobody's acknowledging. And once again, it was all for nothing. It
yep,
did not have to be this way at all. And there's going to be no ramifications for this. Neither this president nor the last president will ever pay a price for locking people in their homes. None of these governors will. And even the ones who, may have lightened up, there's still responsibility on some of their hands because they still lock people down. There's still some other things that were done. Now, once again, credit where credit's due, but at the same time, a lot of people need to freaking pay.
yep,
How do you account for all this? How do you account for, once again, the loss of life, the loss of, potential life lived, people on vacation scheduled, kids going to sports, and, think about a little kid going to play football or something like that, right? Maybe that kid won't ever find out if he's going to make it to the NFL. Could you
yep,
imagine? Maybe that was that kid's dream. He'll never know because some authoritarian had told him, you're not allowed to leave your house because the air is dangerous and you may kill your grandmother.
yep,
I don't think that grandmother ever gave a shit. I think that grandmother would rather see their grandchild celebrate their lives.
yeah,
And, if they get a cold and get sick, well, then I think most grandparents normally realize, like, hey, we got to enjoy our lives. So now it's time for us to see, our future generations enjoy their lives.
yep.
And never in history did we ever decide that we're going to sacrifice the young for the old. It was always
No,
the other way around. One thing that always kind of stood with me because, and I'm a huge Sammy Hagar fan, but I want to say it was summer of 2020. He said, if I get this and I die, so be it. He said, I'm willing to play another concert. And, if this is it, then this is it. And it always kind of stuck with me because I'm like, man, you got to think that guy lived the life. I mean, the dude sang for Van
hmm,
Halen of
yeah,
all people. He had plenty of number one hits. Everybody knows I can't drive 55. And that dude's willing to say, you know what? I did my time. If this is it, this is it. So
yeah,
there's something really beautiful about that, to me at least. And I think a lot of people had that perspective, but the point I'm getting at here is that that choice was taken away from them.
yeah,
And nobody should make that choice for anybody else. That should be upon the individual to decide whether or not, hey, I'm going to isolate myself, or, hey, once again, if this is the end of the world, then I want to enjoy this my way and I want to see my children be happy.
yeah. There's more to life than just surviving and staying alive.
Absolutely.
And I think the society as a whole is losing that a little bit. That quote there about getting COVID and that this is it, it's it. It reminds me of C.S. Lewis. He had written about the atomic age, and he, paraphrasing here, he just said, if the bomb comes, if it drops, don't let it drop, me huddled under a desk and hiding and afraid and not living. Let it drop and let my life end while I'm laughing, playing, praying, eating, just, let it drop and let my life end while I'm living life. Um, it's, you know, the saying goes, it's better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. Like, because living on your knees isn't really living. Whereas being on your feet is. And so I think I've gotten to that place, in my life too, where, I've gone through, personal stuff and, started just losing some things. And I'm just like, at this point, I just want to live life. I, I've lost some of the things in my life that, you know, I didn't want to lose. And they were the things in my life that I never wanted to lose, and would have been things that I would have sacrificed so much for. But now it's like those things are gone, and not that I don't have anything to lose, but like, I'd just rather be free at this point in life. Just rather be free, just rather live my life, enjoy people, enjoy my friends, enjoy this work with Don't Tread on Philly. That's been amazing. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have come up to me recently and said, wow, thank you so much, like in tears, saying thank you so much. I didn't know there were other people in the city that weren't okay with this. Like, all of my friends have shunned me and I've been alone, and like, that's life-giving, and it's so cool to see that. and yeah, it's worth standing up. It's worth taking the risk to live life and be human.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I completely agree. There is a lot more to life than just avoiding death at all costs. Um, and it is absolutely true. What is life if you have to live it on your knees, or if you can't have your integrity in one piece at the end of the day?
Yeah.
There's definitely something to be said for that. In these last 2 years, I think a lot more people realize that than perhaps we could even realize. And it seems like Don't Tread on Philly has kind of shown that in a lot of people, and it brings a lot of people together in that respect.
Yeah.
Um, Audrey, anything you got going on cool in the future? Anywhere people could find you? How can people support you?
Yeah, so don'ttryonphilly.com is our website. We're doing a lot of thinking and brainstorming about how to continue reaching out to the city. As I said, we're looking to make a cultural change. We're looking to get people together. We'd love to work with some artists, some designers, web designers, whatever. We want to change the culture. We want to get some art out in the city that promotes freedom. We want to be able to educate people and get people connected. So don'ttreadonphilly.com is the best place to reach us. You should be seeing a lot of new stuff coming out here in the next couple of weeks.
Cool, cool. Are you going to be at the LP convention?
I will. Yep, I
Cool,
will be there.
cool.
Yeah,
Well, I'm looking forward to meeting you there along with
cool.
everybody else. I think it's going to be a really good time. By the time this airs, it'll
Yeah.
already have passed. So, well,
Yep. We'll see what happens.
yeah. I plan on having a show with a couple of the bigger Mises Caucus guys. I have Mark coming on next week, probably sometime after you. So maybe we'll do another show together and maybe shoot the shit on how the convention went down, because I'm sure there will be a lot to reflect on.
It's going to be entertaining in one way or the other. I mean, I'm going to have a good time. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I've met a lot of great Mises Caucus people thus far. Everyone on the eastern half of the state, I've met quite a bit of them, and I love them to death. But people like yourself on the western half, I haven't met yet, other than maybe Rob. I think I met him once. So yeah, we're gonna have a good time no matter what. However it ends, it's gonna be a good time, and I'm sure we'll enjoy it.
Yeah. And, I think no matter what happens, even if it's not a full Mises Caucus takeover, as paranoid as some people that would make it out to be, we're still there for a good time. And I don't think any of us will pick up our bags and leave. We're not like some of the people who are just going to go home. Look, we're here for the fight of our lives, man. We're here for we're here for fucking liberty. That's it.
Yep.
We're here for freedom. We're here to change the fucking world. And I know it sounds very, very, perhaps naive or idealistic, but what else do we have? We got to fight for something. And once again, if things don't go our way, we're not packing up our bags and leaving. They thought we would after last year, but nope, we're coming back bigger and stronger. They can do whatever they want to do, but we're gonna hear and we're gonna be there, and we're gonna fight right beside all the people who hate us, because we know that they agree with us on most things, but we're willing to extend an olive branch to them, and I hope that they would afford us the same fortune. Anything else you got to say, or are you good to rock and roll?
No, I think that's about it.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you this weekend, and I think it's gonna be a really good time. And like I said, we'll probably do it again sometime within the next couple months to kind of reflect on everything that happened.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
Cool. Well, yeah, keep me posted on everything that goes on. Don't Tread on Philly, and obviously I'll put all the links in the description below so everybody can keep up with you and all the great work you guys are doing over there.
Cool. Sounds good.
Cool. All right, everybody. This is In Liberty and Health. Take care.